Behold, I will stir up the Medes against them, which shall not regard silver, and as for gold, they shall not delight in it. Their bows also shall dash the young men to pieces, and they shall have no pity on the fruit of the womb. Their eye shall not spare children. And Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldees' excellency, shall be as when God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. It shall never be inhabited, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation, neither shall the Arabian pitch tent there, neither shall the shepherds make their fold there. But wild beasts of the desert shall lie there, and the houses shall be full of doleful creatures, and owls shall dwell there, and satyrs shall dance there. And the wild beasts of the islands shall cry in their desolate houses, and dragons in their pleasant palaces. And her time is near to come, and her days shall not be prolonged. And I saw, as it were, a sea of glass mingled with fire, and them that had gotten the victory over the beast, and over his image, and over his mark, and over the number of his name, stand on the sea of glass, having the harps of God. And they sing the song of Moses, the servant of God, and the song of the Lamb, saying, Great and marvelous are thy works, Lord God Almighty. Just and true are thy ways, thou King of saints. Who shall not fear thee, O Lord, and glorify thy name? For thou only art holy. For all nations shall come and worship before thee, for thy judgments are made manifest.
Lucky for you, nothing keeps you connected like AT&T 5G. Is that fast? Oh yeah, it's fast.
All right. Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushua, Bahashem, Rakakadash. Double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples to his younger brothers. And peace and blessing, salutation to the hopeful lake out there pushing his word in truth and in sincerity across the four winds in the name of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushua, pushing to get up out of here. Shalom to the hopeful lake, the believers, the listeners whom have came back to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh Bashem Shai. And what I want to get into today, all right, going into the account of the fall of Jericho, because that's very relevant, for the times that we're coming into now. And it was inspired by a documentary, it was a 30-minute documentary, proving, that you had this Christian archaeologist, and he was proving, that the account, of Jericho and Joshua, all right, and the men of Israel invading, Jericho and taking it over, he pretty much showed that without a doubt that account happened, and he's going to go into it's a very faith, boosting, documentary. I was real excited about this lesson, because I like to, go into the history, and I think this is going to be very edifying for the body, a faith booster in the time to come, and just shows you how Yahweh Bashim Shai has everything mapped out, man. Full trust, in our power, So what I want to do, I want to walk through the account of Jericho, beginning with Joshua the 5th chapter, then reading the 6th chapter, and then we're going to pretty much watch the video, watch the documentary, you know, and I commentate a little bit with the documentary, you know, precept here or there, but mainly letting the video show, you know. So what I want to do first is let's get into the account. All right, let's get into the account of Joshua the 5th chapter. All right, now let's get into this account, you know, with Joshua, you know, because and we're going to relate it to what's going on today, you know, with us as a nation. All right. Because at the end of the day, what we have to understand, there's two generations of Israelite. There's a generation of the elect, and there's a generation of the disobedient. All right. Whom the Lord in this time, you know, he still has a wrath, you know, prepared for them, just as he has victory prepared for the elect, you know. So let's start off with Joshua chapter 5, verse 1. It says, and it came to pass when all the kings of the Amorites, which were on the side of Jordan westward, and all the kings of the Canaanites, which were by the sea, heard that the Lord Yahweh Bashim Shai had dried up the waters of Jordan from before the children of Israel until we were passed over, that their heart melted, neither was their spirit in them anymore because of the children of Israel. You see, hey, because you know is the most famous, you know, splitting, you know, was a Moses, you know, when he parted, all right, what they call the Red Sea. You see, that's the most, you know, famous account of the Most High splitting water and allowing Israel to come across. But then there was also a time when he split the water for Joshua, all right, in the river of Jordan. You see, and Israel crossed that water to come into the land, all right, of the Canaanites, all right, which later became the land of Israel. So when these Canaanites heard of that, you know, they heart melted, man, because they knew it was a power that was assisting, all right, Joshua and the children of Israel, all right, with the children goes back to the sons, you know, going back to the military. That's what they feared, you know, those men of Israel invading. But men, women, and children crossed over, all right, into the land of Canaan. You see? So it was like they heard about these people. You gotta understand, like if you're a king and you're hearing about these people that's conquering, they came out of Egypt, you know, the stores, you know, the Most High's name is going abroad on how, you know, he's aiding, you know, this particular people, you know, throughout the land, all right, and that they're conquering their enemies. I think Joshua, I think it's 31 and 33 kings, heathen kings that Joshua defeated. You know, Joshua and the militaries of Israel defeated, you know, going into the land of Canaan. So if you're a king and you hearing this, and then you hear the news that now they right here at your doorstep, you see, they were terrified, man. All right. Just like in this time, because we had fell away as a people, but see, the Most High has pretty much resurrected the nation of Israel. And Esau was like, damn, they at our doorsteps. In the spirit, Esau like, they at our doorsteps, man. You see? Verse 2 says, at that time, the Lord Yahweh Bashim Shai said unto Joshua, make these sharp knives and circumcise again the children of Israel the second time. Now, I know when my wife was reading this, she had a question about it. And because you can read and you can think that it was talking about, you know, doing the double circumcision. No, it's going to go into it. It's speaking about, you know, starting that tradition again, you know, because we have fell away from it. You see? So it says, and at that time the Lord said to Joshua, make these sharp knives and circumcise again the children of Israel the second time. And when you keep reading it, it's going to expound on and explain itself. And Joshua made him sharp knives and circumcised the children of Israel at the heel of the foreskins. And this is why Joshua, and this is the cause why Joshua did circumcise all the people that came out of Egypt that were males, even all of men of war died in the wilderness by the way after they came out of Egypt. Yeah, and those were, those murmurers and those unbelievers. All right, because remember they sent Joshua and Caleb when Joshua and Caleb was young. All right, they sent those spies. Caleb being one of those spies, they sent them to go spy out the land, and Joshua and Caleb, the only two that came back with a good report saying that look, we can take the land. All right, but you had those other spies that they had no faith. They're like the men tall, we grasshoppers before their sight. So the Most High killed off that faithless generation. All right, and He only spared Joshua and Caleb from that generation, and there was a whole new generation of Israelites in the wilderness that wasn't circumcised. You see, He says now all the people that came out were circumcised, but all the people that were born in the wilderness by the way, as they came forth out of Egypt, they had not they had not circumcised. For all the children of Israel walked 40 years in the wilderness, to all the people that were men of war which came out of Egypt were consumed, because they obeyed not the voice of the Lord Yahweh, unto whom the Lord swore that He would show them the land which the Lord swore to their fathers that He will give us, a land that flowed with milk and honey. Yeah, see, Joshua and Caleb, they didn't care about the size of those Canaanites that was in the land. All right, they didn't give a damn. They didn't care about the city being fortified with the walls. They didn't care about none of that. They had the mind frame. Yahweh Bashim Al Shai is with us. We got them. But then you had that negativity. All right, that negative energy from what that unbelieving generation of Israelites, and Most High killed all them niggas off, man. And rose up a whole new generation of Israelites who became what? Obedient. And we're going to go into their obedience because they got the victory through obedience. Like we're going to get the victory, all right, through. And let's get to the point. All right, this is Leviticus 26 and 40. It says, if they confess their iniquity, all right, and the iniquity of their fathers with their trespass, which they trespass against me, and that also they have walked contrary unto me. And this is what we're doing now. You see, and how we're confessing the iniquity of our forefathers by repenting, all right, back to what? Obedience, by coming back to the obedience. Our actions is us confessing that our forefathers had it wrong, man. The generations before us, that plantation Christianity and all this madness our people was into, all right. These tradition that they've started, these pagan holidays that our people celebrate. Well, we've repented, and that's us confessing that look, our forefathers had it wrong. Jake talked about the ancestors, and they had it wrong. All right, and they was walking contrary to Yahweh Bashim Al Shai. All right, it says, and that I also have walked contrary unto them, and have brought them into the land of their enemies. If then their uncircumcised hearts, you see that? Because a lot of us are physically, as men, a lot of us are physically circumcised. But said, if their uncircumcised hearts be humble, you see that? Uncircumcised hearts, which is what? Our mind. You see? Because when you circumcise, what do? You peel back their foreskin. Well, it was a foreskin covering our mind that had to be peeled back. All right? Because under their foreskin was what? Filth. You see? That foreskin had to be peeled back and cleansed with the word, man. And we're gonna show you. And it says, and then it says, and they then accept the punishment, all right, of their iniquity. Yeah. Because when you go to Micah, all right, when you go to Micah, because we had to accept that we in this situation for our disobedience, man. Because Jake be around complaining and crying, doing all these things, but they never accept their part, all right, in how we ended up here, man. Because one thing about repentance is us accepting accountability, man. You know, this is Micah 7:9. It says, "I will bear the indignation of the Lord," and this is an example of a prophet showing what accountability, man. It says, "I will bear the indignation of the Lord Yahweh, because I have sinned against him. Until he plead my cause and execute judgment for me, he will bring me forth to the light, and I shall behold his righteousness," man. And the Lord is going to be provoked to execute judgment for us on the behalf of our obedience, man. All right, which we're going to get into it now. Let's go back to Leviticus. All right, so when we go back to Leviticus 26th chapter. All right, Leviticus 26 and 41. It says, "And that I also have walked contrary unto them, and have brought them into the land of their enemies. If then their uncircumcised hearts be humbled, and they then accept of the punishment of their iniquity," as we just read in Micah 7:9, "then will I remember my covenant with Jacob and my covenant with Isaac, and also my covenant with Abraham will I remember, and I will remember the land." You see, because that land, all right, was made for us, man. You see, those resources and the controlling those trade routes, you know, all that was meant for us, man. But we went off. But now the Most High, that we repented and we came back to obedience. Now the Most High is remembering the covenant, and He's getting ready to set us up, all right, in that land. We're getting ready to conquer the earth in righteousness, man. Just as Joshua conquered, all right. But before Joshua conquered, there was a there was an obedient generation that had to be brought up, because he couldn't do it with that unbelief. You see, even when Yahweh shot, when he was getting ready to heal, bring that little Israelite girl back to life, what he do? He cleared the room out. He got all the unbelief out the room. Then he raised that little girl up, which is symbolic for Israel as well. Then he resurrected that little girl, but he got all the unbelief out the room first, because they were laughing. You know, Jake was doubting, and Yahweh shot kicked them niggas out, man. Then he performed the miracle, and that's what's happening now. The Most High is kicking out all the unbelief, all right, and He's gathering the believers, and then that's when we're gonna get the victory, man. All right, just like this account with Joshua, man. The Most High had to kill them niggas off, man. You know. So let's go back to the book of Joshua. Now the brother just put this, the brother your heartless Judah Israel. And it said Deuteronomy 10:16, it says, "Circumcise therefore the foreskin of your heart, and be no more stiff-necked." Yep, going with your mind. You see? Beginning with your mind, man. That layer had to be pulled back off our mind. All right. This is the brother Prince of Yahweh. This is Rock 35:3. Said, "To depart from wickedness is a thing pleasing to the Lord, and to forsake unrighteousness is a propitiation." All right, which is what? An acceptable sacrifice. You see? Obedience, man. Obedience is going to take us a long way. You brothers and you few sisters, man. humbleness and obedience is going to take us a long way. Now, let's finish reading this account in Joshua. This Joshua 5 and 7. It says, and their children, whom he raised up in their stead, them Joshua circumcised, for they were uncircumcised because they had not circumcised them by the way. And it came to pass when they had done circumcising all the people that they abode in the camp. They abode in their places in the camp till they were whole, which they had to heal. And it says, and the Lord said unto Joshua, this day have I rolled away the reproach of Egypt. See, he rolled away the reproach of Egypt. And that's what happened to us when we came into this ministry and truly repented. The Most High was rolling away the reproach of Egypt, those ways that we was brought up in. All right. Whatever we was into, the Most High rolled that away. All right. Through this word, man. The reproach of Egypt. All right. This spiritual Egypt. It said, this day have I rolled away the reproach of Egypt from off you. Wherefore the name of this place is called Gilgal unto this day. Let's see what Gilgal means. Does it give us some? Gilgal. It look like the Hebrew word Galah, Galah, Gal, Galagal. Yep, it says a wheel rolling. Yep. A wheel rolling, And like I say, that is why can a brother put that with the 2 Corinthians 5 and 17? 2 Corinthians 5 and 17. Well, let's get back to it. A wheel rolling. All right. And it says, verse 10, it says, and the children of Israel encamped in Gilgal and kept the Passover on the 14th day of the month at evening in the plains of Jericho. So we were circumcised before, that Passover. All right. We know that's a heavy, high holy day, man. And in this time we prepare, we hope to be passed over from the destruction, man, and delivered. And it says, and they did eat of the old corn of the land on the morrow after the Passover, unleavened cakes and parched corn in the self same day. And the manna ceased on the morrow after they had eaten of the old corn of the land. Neither had the children of Israel manna any more, but they did eat of the fruit of the land of Canaan that year. So they began to actually partake in the fruits of Canaan. And this was when the Most High stopped sending down manna because we was getting ready to come into the land, all right, promised to our forefather. You see? Like, hey, we finna get ready to eat the fruits. Like what we're doing now, we're laboring. Hey, we're gonna eat the fruits of our labor in the kingdom, man. We're gonna partake. It's not gonna be, like the scripture say, we're not gonna need to teach anymore. All right, our people know the Lord. All our people gonna be righteous. Now we're just gonna partake in, the fruits and the luxuries of their land, man, and their rulership. All right, verse 13. And it came to pass when Joshua was by Jericho that he lifted up his eyes and looked, and beheld, there stood a man over against him with his sword drawn in his hand. And Joshua went unto him and said unto him, art thou for us or for our adversary? And this man is Yahushua. So Joshua looked up and seen Yahushua. You see, because Yahushua was aiding these military campaigns, man. And it says, and he said, nay, but as the captain of the Lord, all right, of the host of the Lord Yahweh, am I now come? And Joshua fell on his face to the earth. And this is going to prove that this is Yahushua, and did worship. All right. So it's a cut on any clown saying you don't need to worship Yahushua. Because when Joshua fell on his face to worship, he wasn't rebuked. You see, because if this was off, you don't think the Lord would have told Joshua, like, look, you worship, my son or angel. All right. You think the Most High wouldn't have corrected this? No. But he was in order because Yahweh Shai, all right, is commanded to be worshipped by the Heavenly Father. And it says, and Joshua fell on his face to the earth and did worship and said unto him, what saith my lords unto his servant, and the captain of the Lord host said unto Joshua, loose thy shoe from off thy foot, for the place wherein thou standest is holy. And Joshua did so. You see? So before this is right before we're finna go into Jericho. All right. So now Israel is circumcised. All right, which today is our minds. All right, that filth being rolled back. You see off our mind. And then what happened, man? Yahweh Shai showed up. You know. So now we had Yahweh Shai. We was in good standings with Yahweh Shai. You know, he was for our behalf. You know, so now Joshua and them is ready to conquer. But first, they had to be, you know, some things set up. And when you go into let's get a few precepts real quick. All right. So when you go into because it said Joshua took a sharp knife, you know, to circumcise them. Well, what's that sharp knife today? That's circumcising our mind. When you go to Hebrews 4 and all right. Hebrews 4 and 12. We're going to come back to this. It says, for the word of the Most High is quick and powerful and sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing even to the dividing asunder of soul and spirit and of the joints and marrow, and is a discerner of thoughts and the intents of the heart. You see? This that two-edged sword that's circumcising our minds now, man. You know, because we get cut reading, you get cut, you know, by watching videos. But what happens? We heal. Just like Joshua, it took time for those everyone that Joshua and them circumcised, those men had to heal. So we get cut, but see, we're being healed from those cuts. All right, as our minds are being cut in the spirit. But now what? We in a process where these things are healing. You see? It's all in the spirit. And that's let's go to 2 Corinthians 5, and then we're gonna go into the takeover, man. Hey, we finna take over, man. Hey, I was reading this, then I was looking at the documentary, man. We finna take this shit over, man. You know, most I finna show out, man. You know, and we gotta be fully persuaded in that. This 2 Corinthians 5 and 17 said, therefore, if any man be in Hamashiach, he is a new creature. Old things are passed away. Behold, all things are become new. And that's what is that speaking of, being circumcised in the mind, having that new perspective, that filth, all right, being cleansed off our minds, man. All right. What's that? Psalms 119. All right. Psalms 119 and Psalms 119 and 9. It says, wherewithal shall a young man cleanse his way, by taking heed thereto according to thy word. All right. So this word is a cleansing agency, man. You know, it cuts, it cleanses, and it heals, man. You know, and that's the process of the spiritual circumcision, man. Now let's go to Joshua the 6th chapter. All right, the conquest of Jericho. Now, hold on, let me get my study Bible so I can. All right, now this is the conquest of Jericho. Now, when you start into this is the book of Joshua, chapter 6, verse 1. It says, now Jericho was straightly shut up because of the children of Israel. None went out and none went in. So it was a siege. All right. You know, the men of war, all right, the men of Israel pretty much surrounded Jericho, you know, just as what hey, we got America surrounded, man, in the spirit. You see? It says, "In the Lord Yahweh Shema Shah said unto Joshua, See, I have given into thine hand Jericho and the king thereof, and the mighty men of valor." And see, once the Most High say, "I done given a nation into the hand of another nation," that's gonna be the final outcome. You see, that's the that's the that's the set in stone. That's what's gonna happen. When the Most High say, "I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that," that's gonna happen. You know, and that's why I say when we see the documentary, it's gonna be like, damn, you know. Even they tried to, because Esau, when we go into the documentary, we're gonna see how Esau tried to hate. You know, this nigga, you know, our biggest hater. This nigga gonna try to say it didn't happen and this and that, but then the archaeologist gonna piece everything together. You know, and it says, "I have given." It says, "See, I have given into the hand of Jericho and the king thereof and the mighty men of valor." You see? And it says, "And ye shall compass the city, all ye men of war, and go round about the city once. Thus shalt thou do 6 days." So they circled the city, 6 days. All right. And then you had another 7 days. So all together it was 13 days. They walked around it 6 days, and then they brought out the priests and the ark. All right, which you're gonna go get into, and brothers can post precepts about, the Lord, promising how we gonna take the kingdom, you know. Verse 4 says, "And 7 priests shall bear before the ark 7 trumpets of ram's horns, and the 7th day ye shall compass the city 7 times, and the priest shall blow with the trumpets. And it shall come to pass that when they make a long blast with the ram's horn, and when ye hear the sound of the trumpet, all the people shall shout with a great shout, and the wall of the city shall fall down flat, and the people shall ascend up, every man straight before him." Um, and it says, "And Joshua the son of Nun called the priests and said unto them, Take up the ark of the covenant, and let 7 priests bear 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark of the Lord. And he said unto the people, Pass on and compass the city, and let them that is on passed on before the ark of the Lord." So you had the priests, you had the trumpets, all right, you had the ark, all right, which we know even yet the ark of the covenant represents Yahweh Shai. You see? So now we're doing the same thing now. We're blowing that trumpet, all right, in America, just like they did Jericho, man. You see, and we got this place compassed about because you got brothers on each coast, west coast, east coast, up north, in the south, in the mid, all right. And what brothers is doing, blowing their trumpet, just like when you go to Joel, the 2nd chapter. All right, Joel 2 and 1. It says, "Blow ye the trumpet, you see, in Zion, and sound the alarm in my holy mountain. Let all the inhabitants of the land tremble, for the Lord, for the day of the Lord Yahweh Shema Shah cometh, for it is nigh at hand." So we're blowing the trumpet in this time, man. You know, and it said, "Let all the inhabitants of the land tremble." See, and those inhabitants of Jericho back then, they were trembling. And see, now you have the same thing from these higher ups, man. The Esau Edom, all right, which are what spiritual Egyptians, they come in the energy of these ancient Canaanites. Guess what? These at least trembling at this trumpet going out because they know what this means. This is a sound of, this is an alarm being blown. All right, this is a spiritual war. See, we're waging a spiritual war, and when you go into it, it's gonna lead. All right, it's going to lead to that victory. Because when you go into Daniel 7:21, this is from the brother Bayan Yasha Allah, "Behold, at the same," it says, "and the same horn made war," and this is America, "with the saints and prevailed against them." And that's what happened. You see, they prevailed. But see, This part gonna play out too, because Esau like to talk about manifest destiny. Well, what about this part? Verse 22, until the Ancient of Days came and judgment was given to the saints of the Most High. And at that time, it says, and the time came that the saints possess the kingdom. So it's gonna happen. You see, it's gonna happen. All right. It's spoken. Like when we read this thing, it's gonna happen. The Most High spoke all these things about Jericho, and it happened exactly like he said it would, man. So the fall of America not gonna be any different, man. But it starts with our obedience first, man. Daniel 7:18. But the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever and ever and ever, man. And that's what we're going to do. All right. The Most High has already given us these Edomites in our hand. See, that's how we got to think, Aki. The Most High said, look, these Edomites are given into our hand, man. All right. We ain't got to worry about the in between, how it's gonna play out, and try to play out all these scenarios in our head. No, the Most High say we we're gonna take the kingdom. So that means Esau is given into our hands already, man. You know. So going back to Joshua the 6th chapter. Now, when you go into I got this study Bible here, this Nelson study Bible. It's pretty good. You can get it from any bookstore, pretty much. It's like $50, but it got some good info. It got bones in it, but it got some pretty good commentary. Now when you go to Joshua the 6th and go through verses 2 through 7, it says the strange battle strategy must have seemed ridiculous to the inhabitants of Jericho, but Israel was to learn from the outset that the campaign for Canaan would be successful only if fought at the Most High's direction. It was to be a spiritual experience. Victory could come only on the basis of spiritual obedience. All right. Victory only came on the basis of spiritual obedience. Come on, man. Jericho was a strategic Canaanite stronghold. Archaeological excavations revealed that Jericho was the oldest known city in the ancient Canaan. Its age and location made it most prominent city in the region. Its fall would open up the whole center of the land to the invaders. So once Jericho fell, all right, they just ran through everybody else, man. Because Jericho was a stronghold. All right. And what's that? What 2 Corinthians 10:4? A brother can post that. And it says, I'm gonna go back to Joshua 6 and 7. It says, and he said unto the people, pass on and compass the city, and let him that is on pass on before the ark of the Lord, Yahweh Bashim Shai. And it came to pass when Joshua had spoken unto the people that the 7 priests bearing the 7 trumpets of ram horns passed on before the Lord, Yahweh Bashim Shai, and blew with the trumpets, and the ark of the covenant of the Lord followed them. So the spirit of Yahweh Bashim Shai was there, just like the spirit is with us now, man. Yahweh Shai said, I will be with you even unto the ends of the world. You see? So the spirit of Yahweh Shai is here, man. In this time and in this region of the earth, Yahweh Shai is here. It says, and the armed men went before the priests and blew with the trumpets and reward, all right, came after the ark, and the rear came after the ark, the priests going on and blowing with the trumpets. And Joshua had commanded this people, saying, ye shall not shout, nor make any noise with your voice, neither shall any word proceed out of your mouth until the day I bid you shout, then you should shout. And see, this is what Joshua is speaking to an obedient, all right, nation of Israelites. You see, we got to focus on obedience. He's speaking to an obedient nation of Israelites, all right, and they was in order. That's why you see, when you see disobedience, ain't gonna be no victory in that, man. Jake wanted to do what they want to do. Jake, all these gimmicks. No, the Most High had simple instruction. All right, blow the trumpets, just like now teaching. See, people look at what we're doing as something that's irrelevant, but this is a mighty work, man. This word is bringing this place down, man. All right. It says, until the day that I bid you shout, then you shall shout. So the ark of the Lord compassed the city, going about it once, and they camped in. It says, and they came into the camp and lodged in the camp. And Joshua rose up early in the morning, and the priest took up the ark of the Lord, and 7 priests bearing 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark of the Lord went on continually and blew with trumpets, and the armed men went before them, but the rearward came after the ark of the Lord, the priests going on and blowing with the trumpets. And the second day they compassed the city once and returned into the camp. So they did 6 days, and it came to pass blew with the trumpets. Joshua said unto the people, shout, for the Lord Yahweh Shema Shai hath given you the city, and the city shall be accursed, even it and all that are therein. All right, to the Lord only. All right, it said to the Lord Yahweh Shema Shai. Only Rahab, all right, the harlot shall live, she and all that are with her in her house, because she hid the messengers that went that we sent. Yeah, because those messengers promised that they would spare Rahab and her family for her good deed, that she did unto those Israelite spies. You see, and the documentary gonna go into that too. I'm telling you. Yeah, how about Shema Shai is a bad power. Verse 18, it says, and ye in any wise keep yourselves from the accursed things, lest ye make yourselves accursed when you take the accursed thing and make the camp of Israel a curse and trouble it. But all the silver and gold and vessels of brass of iron are consecrated unto the Lord. They shall come into the treasury of the Lord Yahweh. So they're being instructed not to take anything but the silver, gold, the vessels of brass and iron, and those would go into the treasury. That's all they was instructed to do. Everything else supposed to be slaughtered and burnt. You see? It says, so the people shouted with the priest. It said, when the priest blew the trumpets, and it came to pass when the people heard the sound of the trumpet, and the people shouted with a great shout, that the wall fell down flat, so that the people went up into the city, every man straight before him, and they took the city. You see? Now, when you go into it, yep, the brother got it. Water, bro. This the brother by Young Yasha 2 Corinthians 10:4. It said, for the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through the most high to the pulling down of strongholds. All right. And right now, what are we doing? We're pulling down spiritual strongholds. But it's gonna come a time, all right, when that 7th trump gonna sound, all right, and that ark of the covenant, which is Yahweh Shai, hey, then it's gonna then something gonna shake for real. All right, then it's gonna be a physical taking down. This is a revelation. Now remember this. You see, all right. Now this is Revelation 11:14. It said the second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly. Now, when you go into this group of precepts, you see what the title is: the 7th trumpet. Yahweh Shai's reign foreseen. All right. You can't make it up, man. It says, and the 7th angel sounded, all right, and there was great voices in heaven saying, the kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of our Lord and of his anointed. You see that? So just as Joshua, all right, hey, he conquered Jericho, where Yahweh Shai is coming to conquer, all right, the earth, man. You know, and just as Jericho was burnt, it was invaded, it was burnt, everything was slaughtered. The same thing gonna happen in America, man. All right, and he shall reign forever and ever. All right. You see, that was a prelude of what's to come on a much more massive scale. What we're reading in Joshua, man. You know, um, but they just finished Joshua out. Then we're gonna get to the documentary, man. I really want you brothers and sisters to see this. This is Joshua 6:21. It says, and they utterly destroyed all that was in the city, both man and woman, young and old. See how obedient they were? All right, not like Saul, all right, his weak ass, all right, and ox and sheep and ass with the edge of the sword. But Joshua had said unto the two men that had spied out the county, go into the harlot's house and bring out thence the woman and all that she had, and as ye swear, all right, and as ye swear unto her. And this also shows the integrity of Israel. Like they said, they told Rahab they was gonna preserve her in the family, and they did it, man. Not like Esau, man. You know, who don't keep no treaties, who don't keep no agreements. All right. It says, and the young men that were spies went in and brought out Rahab and her father and her mother and her brethren and all that she had, and they brought out all of the kindred and left them without the camp of Israel, and they burnt the city with fire and all that was therein, only silver and gold and the vessels of brass of iron they put in the treasury of the house of the Lord Yahweh Bashim Shai. And Joshua saved Rahab the harlot alive and her father's household and all that she had, and she dwelleth in Israel even unto this day, because she hid the messengers which Joshua sent to spy out of Jericho. Now, a Christian read this and try to, because they try to use anything to incorporate heathens into salvation. All right. Rahab was spared, and we're gonna see like this was spared just to show the power of Yahweh Shema Shai, when these archaeologists start, investigating these things. But then also with Rahab, more than likely in the kingdom, she's just gonna be like a one of these top concubines to, every time she come back in reincarnation, she's probably gonna have a good lot. Like she's gonna be a beautiful concubine to, one of the men of Israel. You see? But she's not going to have immortality. She's not going to have, the status of an Israelite woman in the kingdom. No, she's just going to have a decent lot, for what she did. You see, we serve a just power, man. Because after we bust these nations up for 1,000 years, man, Earth gonna be paradise, man. They're still gonna be in subjection unto us. They still gonna be our servants, but they're gonna enjoy the earth. All right, they're gonna enjoy a righteous kingdom, man. It says, and Joshua adjured them at that time, saying, cursed be the man of the Lord that rises up and buildeth this city, Jericho. He shall lay the foundation thereof in his firstborn, and in his youngest son shall he set up the gates. So the Lord was with Joshua, and his fame noised throughout all the country, man. Just as Yahweh Shai is going to get his fame, when he comes back. Now, you get ready to get into this documentary. All right. So I was just going into Jericho, and I came across this documentary, and I said it's pretty edifying. Now they're gonna use Edomite images, like that's us, but we know what it is.
Of him with two of my friends. And I said, how would you feel if you went to Mecca?
Give it a minute.
The Arturian people, Pleiadian people, and the Syrian people came into this world to teach and give human.
And they handed you a brochure that said that Mecca, that the Quran.
The Arturian people, Pleiadian people, and the Syrian people came to this world to teach and
No, nigga. All right. So this the doc. I'm gonna mute myself, but so we don't have that reverb. But yeah, we're gonna I'm gonna let it play. I probably stop it here and there, but that's why I want to go over the account, in the spirit. So that way, when you see y'all brothers and sisters see the documentary, we're gonna see how it all adds up. Now, for warning, like I say, Esau gonna try to be a hater and say it didn't happen, but then you're gonna have these Christian archaeologists go into it, and they like, see, this adds up perfectly, you know.
Well, welcome to the Holy Land and this biblical site of Tel Jericho. I've been waiting a long time to come here, and I'm really excited to be here. So much happened right here in Jericho that we're going to be looking at. So welcome, sit back and really enjoy this place here. We're going to be walking all through it here and showing you all about that. If you're watching my video, God bless you. We're happy to have you along with us. So this is about Tel Jericho. Amazingly, Tel Jericho, also known as Tel Es Sultan, provides some of the most detailed evidence regarding the truthfulness and accuracy of the Old Testament. The evidence is fascinating, and I'm excited to share it with you. Unfortunately, over the past 70 years, this site has been turned into the #1 attack on the Testament. So, what provides the greatest evidence for the truthfulness of the Old Testament has been turned into the greatest attack on it. However, you will be able to see the evidence for yourself and come to believe all the evidence found here supports the exact details in the biblical account. It will be quite convincing to see. Now, Jericho is in the Jordan Valley, about 8 miles or 13 kilometers north of the Dead Sea, and about 15 miles or 24 kilometers east of Jerusalem. It's situated at about 900 feet or about 275 meters below sea level, making it the lowest city in the world. So right now you are at the lowest city in the world. Its name means City of Palms. It was located at the crossroads of 2 main travel routes. It had a north-south route that ran through the Jordan Valley and an east-west route that connected the east side of the Jordan with Jerusalem, the Samaritan cities, and the coastal plains of the Mediterranean Sea. Now, a little bit about the historical background of Jericho. Jericho was a well-fortified Canaanite city before the Israelites arrived. Because it was on the crossroads and because of its location, it was well fortified by the Canaanites before the Israelites arrived. It's an ancient city with around 6,000 years of history. It boasts as the oldest continually inhabited city in the world. Now, right here at this Tel, archaeologists have uncovered 23 layers of civilizations. So once again, this is a Tel, and they have found 23 layers of civilizations. Now let's begin by looking at the conflict surrounding this site. If you were to visit Jericho today, you would be given a visitor's brochure that says the following. The town was deserted, the late Bronze Age, 14th century BC, and the city wall of Jericho, of Joshua invasion fame, was not found by archaeologists, thus indicating a contradiction between the biblical narrative and the archaeological evidence. So, in other words, when the time the Bible says Joshua conquered Jericho, it was already destroyed and deserted, making the biblical account wrong. This is what this site attempts to teach every visitor that comes here. Now, how has this come about? There have been 3 major excavations carried out here at Tel Jericho. The first took place by Ernst Sellen and Karl Watzinger between 1907 and 1911. From their discoveries, they suggested all the evidence supported the biblical account of the battle and destruction of Jericho. The second excavation was done by a British archaeologist named John Garstang between 1930 and 1936. In addition to the previous discoveries, he documented remains of the upper wall as described in the Bible and dated it to around 1400 BC, the exact date of the Israelite conquest. He discovered many rooms that contained full jars of burnt barley and other pottery. By carefully analyzing much of the pottery, Garstang also dated the destruction of the city to around 1400 BC, which matches the exact date of the biblical conquest of Jericho. The third excavation was done by Kathleen Kenyon. She was a British archaeologist as well. Between 1950
Now, this archaeologist, see, the first 2 archaeologists, they said, look, everything is adding up according to the excavations. They were like, everything is adding up to the biblical account. But then you have this nigga here, all right, her handsome ass, Kathleen Kenyon. She's going to be the one that's going to try to debunk the biblical account of Jericho, all right? But then he's going to come back after her, and the evidence that he's going to bring, the way he's going to line it up with the scriptures and the archaeology, all right, is undeniable, man. But this is the one that we know who sent this we know who sent this nigga, man, to cause that confusion, man. And it's ironic that here it is, Esau tried to debunk the Bible, all right, these elites, but then they'll call themselves us and be in the land. You see? Damn hypocrite, man.
and 1958. Her style of archaeology used more modern techniques and entailed making cuts into the tell to reveal the layers of it. It was like cutting into a layered cake. Her excavations confirmed the previous discoveries, and in addition, she discovered an ancient Canaanite tower wall, more pottery, and other discoveries. The most recent excavations have been carried out by an Italian team from 1997 to 2000, and then from 2009 until the present, under the leadership of Lorenzo Nigro. This last group is the one responsible for the brochures and signs placed around the site. All these excavation leaders agree on the following. 1, that this is ancient Jericho. That is not disputed. 2, that the upper brick walls fell down outward and piled up against the lower retaining walls. 3, that there is a massive burn layer all throughout the tell. 4, that full jars of barley have been found throughout many rooms on the tell. 5, that there is an abandonment layer where no one occupied Jericho for some time. And 6, that the remains of an Israelite occupation then later occurred here at ancient Jericho in around 875 BC. Now, what they don't agree upon is the date of the destruction of the city wherein the walls fell down and the city was burned. Kathleen Kenyon led the way in overturning the previous conclusions and dating of Jericho's destruction, and especially the dating of Garstang, who placed the destruction of ancient Jericho at 1400 BC, again, the time of the conquest by the Israelites. Now, I'll briefly share why this is the case. Why is there this conflict, and why did Kathleen Kenyon overturn all the previous archaeologists, and why her position has been the majority position moving forward today, and why at this tell the brochures and all the signs promote her position and not the biblical position. Well, Kathleen Kenyon placed the date of Jericho's destruction at 1550 BC, about 150 years before the Israelites arrived. As a result, she concluded that the biblical account did not happen as recorded in the Bible and therefore is false. Her main reason for her dating of Jericho's destruction was the absence of pottery she felt should have been found there. She believed there should have been cypress pottery found at Jericho. Canaanite pottery she had found, she based her dating on the absence of pottery. Basing conclusions on the absence of something instead of considering all the other evidence is, with all due respect, a very weak argument. A recent archaeologist by the name of Dr. Bryant Wood, who is a specialist in Canaanite pottery during the time of the Israelite conquest, has thoroughly analyzed the pottery found by both Garstang and Kathleen Kenyon and affirms undoubtedly that the pottery found at ancient Jericho dates to around 1400 BC, the exact time of the Israelite conquest. Kathleen Kenyon did have
a huge testimony for the Jewish people, and it's fairly well known that in the early steps of gathering
did have some of the grain from the discovered jars carbon dated, which she used to support her claims. However, carbon dating can be questionable and can have a 100-year or more plus or minus accuracy. So it would still not nullify the dating of the destruction of Jericho in around 1405 BC. It should be noted that between John Garstang's excavations and Kathleen Kenyon's, there was the establishment of the nation of Israel. This caused huge political issues to surface. Kathleen Kenyon was not a Christian, and ancient Jericho was under the control of Jordan at the time she did her excavations. Her purpose seems to have been to erase any connection the Israelis had to the land and replace the archaeology with a different perspective. She did this at other sites in Israel as well, one of which being David's tomb in the city of David. She completely overturned the previous discoveries and conclusions of that site. Today, ancient Jericho is under the control of the Palestinians of the West Bank, and it appears they don't want to concede any rights to Israel. For this reason, the current Italian group, who has been excavating this site for the past 20 or so years, have actually covered up some of the evidence at this site that supports the biblical account so it can no longer be seen. And as mentioned, they are the ones in charge of the brochures people receive and the signs on the tell, which promote that there is no evidence for Joshua's destruction of Jericho.
And now this whole battle's been going on for a long time for me because I've been taking people to that place because you could actually see jars that I showed you pictures of. James has seen them in the destruction right there. You can see the rims and the destruction. It was beautiful. And when Jericho on Earth came out, that's when Dr. Negro got extremely mad at me. And then they buried that. They've been burying it. Remember last year we were here, remember they were burying it. Do you remember that? Now it's buried.
Unfortunately, it appears the evidence found here at ancient Jericho is being politically driven and not as driven. The vast majority of those who at this tell, which is the second most visited site in the West Bank, are told the Bible is not true and no evidence can be found here to support it. However, the truth is just the opposite. This tell is one of the leading places that shows correlation between what the Bible says and the archaeological evidence found here. Now let's look at the evidence at this site, which all the archaeologists recognize exists, and we'll see how it fits perfectly with the Bible's claims of what happened. Again, this site is one of the best examples of how accurate the Bible is. So let's take a look at the evidence that exist here. We'll begin with the walls of Jericho.
So now he's finna go in. Like he said all that to say this. Now he's finna go into, all right, how everything lines up, man. And this is the part of the lesson that was real faith boost. This was the part of the documentary that was real faith boost. If a brother can post Matthew 4:22, and like the brother said, at the end of the day, it's all through faith. Like even if we never all right, even if we never, seen this documentary, or, we don't have to do archaeological digs, we know the spirit bear witness with who we are, you know. You see, so Hebrews 11:6, it says, but without faith it is impossible to please him, for he that cometh to the Most High must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. All right, so we don't need, to go on world tours doing archaeology, you know. we believe just our faith, but this now what we finna see, he finna line everything up, man.
Now, the city wall here, this Tel Jericho, had not just one wall, it was a double-walled, fortified city. Let's talk about these walls here, because these are the walls that the Lord God Almighty demolished. And so let's talk about them. Once again, they weren't just any kind of walls. They were exceedingly great walls in that time. The walls of Jericho consisted of two parallel walls running side by side. It is believed by some that the walls of Jericho encompass much more land than what the Tel is today. They believe the walls included the spring and extended west a bit. Now, the base of the walls of Jericho were made of large stones, which acted as retaining walls. The retaining walls reached a height of around 15 feet or 5 meters high. On top of these retaining walls was another wall made of mud brick that was about 6 feet or 2 meters wide and reached another 25 feet or 8 meters high. From the ground level, the total height of the exterior wall reached around 40 feet or 12 meters high, and the interior wall from the ground level was around 50 feet or 15 meters high. These were massive, impressive walls that would intimidate any army. Dirt was placed in between the two parallel walls, and on top of this dirt, homes were built in between the walls and against the walls. Now, the reason Jericho had two parallel walls was because of the development of the battering ram sometime in around 2000 BC. At this time, cities would be built smaller but taller to be able to withstand these battering rams. Also, instead of a single wall, two parallel walls with dirt in between them were developed so they could absorb the battering rams as well. This is exactly what we see at Jericho. We see a small example of this at Tel Hatzor as well. The distance between the walls is much smaller at Hatzor, but the same pattern was used. In the middle of the walls was the home of the prostitute Rahab, who hid the spies and let them down the exterior wall using a rope. Now, the Bible tells us exactly how and where the walls of Jericho fell down. After the Israelites marched around the city 7 times, on the 7th day, Joshua 6:20 says that, so the people shouted, and the priest blew the trumpets, and when the people heard the sound of the trumpet, the people shouted with a great shout, and the wall fell flat, so that the people went up into the city, everyone straight ahead, and they took the city. Now, the Hebrew word for fell flat literally means that the walls fell beneath themselves. This means they fell outward towards the outside of the walls and at the bottom of the retaining wall. It also says that after the walls fell outward, that the Israelites went up into the city. The evidence reveals that only the brick walls that were on top of the rock retaining walls crumbled and fell outward. This then formed a ramp upon which the Israelite soldiers could walk up into the city to conquer it. All the archaeologist reports agree upon where the walls fell and how they fell are placed.
So the Most High so cold, he had the bricks of the wall fall outward, and they created a ramp where all we had to do was just walk up. You know, the military of Israel, the men of Israel just had to walk straight up into the city. You see, the Most High said, look, I have given the king of, you know, of the Amorites into thy hand. He made it to where the walls fell in a way that they made ramps where all the men of Israel had to do was walk up, man.
Right beside the lower retaining walls. Over the years, because this site has not been protected with a roof, the mud bricks have deteriorated. However, all the archaeologist reports, and especially that of Kathleen Kenyon, show it clearly, and some of the remains can still be seen today. Some have claimed that the walls of Jericho fell due to an earthquake. However, the archaeology does not support this. An earthquake would have caused all the walls to have fallen every which way. But the evidence shows that just the mud brick walls fell to the outside and piled up against the lower retaining walls. Now, interestingly, the Bible says that God spared Rahab and her family because of Rahab's fear of the Lord. In the northern part of the walls of Jericho, there is a section of the wall that has not been destroyed. In the German excavations between 1907 and 1911, they discovered part of this wall that was perfectly intact, and the mud brick section on top of the retaining wall was preserved and reached a height of 9 feet or 3 meters high. Could it be that this is the area in which Rahab lived? I believe it is, and gives further evidence that the Bible is true and that it was God who ultimately gave the Israelites the victory and saved Rahab and her family. Now let's look at this evidence of a massive burn layer found here at the Tell. The Bible says that after the walls of Jericho fell down, Joshua burned the city with fire. Joshua 6:24 says, then they burned the city with fire and all that was in it. Only the silver and gold and the articles of bronze and iron they put into the treasury of the house of the Lord. Now there is a massive burn layer that runs throughout the Tell at the exact same layer height. And you can see the evidence here in how it runs and is found throughout the Tell. This burn layer is exactly what we see and of which all the archaeologists agree upon. There's no doubt this burn layer exists. In fact, here is what Kathleen Kenyon said in her archaeological report about this burn layer. The destruction was complete. Walls and floors were blackened and reddened by fire, and every room was filled with fallen bricks, timbers, and household utensils. In most rooms, the fallen debris was heavily burnt, but the collapse of the walls of the eastern rooms seemed to have taken place before they were affected by the fire. So Kathleen Kenyon affirms that there is a massive burn layer here, and that some of the walls, she admits, fell down prior to this burn layer. Now, the way the Israelites burned Jericho was by gathering massive amounts of wood and piling it up against the buildings. The fire would create an intense heat that would crack and crumble the mud brick and stone buildings inside the city, along with burning all the wooden beams and so forth. And we can also find this exact same type of burning that took place at Tel Hatzor to the north of the Sea of Galilee. Next, let's look at these jars of grain that have been found here. There have also been found in many rooms full jars of barley. This reveals that the destruction of ancient Jericho took place during the barley harvest in the spring. That's when barley harvest took place. This is exactly the time of year the Israelites conquered the city. Joshua 5:10 says, while the sons of Israel camped at Gilgal, that was at the edge of Jericho, they celebrated the Passover on the evening of the 14th day of the month on the desert plains of Jericho. And the Passover took place in the spring of the year. The fact that the grain discovered in all the homes in the city were full provide great evidence that it was the Israelites who destroyed Jericho, as other armies would plunder and take everything. However, Israel did not do that. They burned all of this stuff and left it. And why was this the case? Well, God commanded Israel not to take anything from Jericho, as it was to be a sort of burnt offering sacrifice to God, because it was the first city God gave over to the Israelites in the promised land. So they were to dedicate all of these things to the Lord and not take anything. So any other conquering army would have plundered the city, but the fact that it was not is great evidence as well that it was the Israelites who conquered Jericho.
Most High cold, man. Hey, how about Shema outside? It's cold. And see, that was a token of their obedience. Like the archaeologists not only discovering, these different finds and different things, in ancient Jericho, but there's also a token of their obedience, because Joshua told them not to take nothing, burn everything except for the silver, gold, all right, and the brass, put that in the treasury. So that's a token that it was only Israel that did that, because we the only ones that got those commandments, man. You see, any other military would have took everything of value. All right. Can't make it up, man. Esau tried to cover it up, but it backfired. What a brother can put that, you can do nothing against the truth before it. Everything that this man is trying to do to cover the truth up, man, is backfiring on this guy. All right, let's get this one real quick. This is brother Sup with you, Howard Shot. It's Matthew 4:22, and it says, it's like I said Matthew. I'm gonna say Mark. It's like it, brothers. Yeah, I'm gonna say Mark 4:22. Brother can post Mark 4:22, and I think that's Corinthians. You can do nothing against the truth before it. But yeah, man. So you can't get around it, man. Then where Rahab was supposed to live, it was unscathed. Everything else was destroyed except the quarters where Rahab and her family lived, man. Yeah, you lose again, nigga. All right, Esau, you lose again, nigga. This 2 Corinthians 13:8, it says, "For we can do nothing against the truth, but for the truth." You see, And Esau was trying to cover this up, but hey, it came out even heavier on them, man. You know? It's a brother, Bayan Yasha Allah says, for there is nothing, all right, for there is this Mark 4.
We know that the conquest of Jericho by the Israelites was short and only lasted 7 days. So this again matches perfectly with the biblical account. Now again, the big issue of dating the walls of Jericho and its destruction boils down to the type of pottery that was found here. Archaeologist Dr. Bryant Wood argues that the local type of pottery called Cypriot bichrome pottery was found in abundance within the destruction level of these walls. This is pottery that dates to the early part of the 15th century BC and matches perfectly with the biblical record of the Israelite conquest in around 1405 BC. Now let's look at this abandonment layer at Tel Jericho. We find here at Tel Jericho an abandonment layer. This means that the city was not inhabited for a long time. An abandonment layer means that there was just soil that built up over time and no activity happened. Interestingly, after Israel conquered and burned Jericho, Joshua placed a curse on the city. Joshua 6:26 says, "Then Joshua made them take an oath at that time, saying, 'Cursed before the Lord is the man who rises up and builds this city Jericho. With the loss of his firstborn, he will lay its foundation, and with the loss of his youngest son, he will set up its gates.'" This abandonment layer is exactly what we see at this site. Jericho would not be rebuilt after its destruction in around 1405 BC until around 875 BC during the time of King Ahab. 1 Kings 6:34 says, "In his days, Hiel the Bethelite rebuilt Jericho. He laid its foundations with the loss of Abiram his firstborn, and set up its gates with the loss of his youngest son, Segub, in accordance with the word of the Lord, which he spoke by Joshua, the son of Nun." So again, we see this abandonment layer that fits perfectly with the Bible's account. Next, we'll see an Israelite layer on this tell. The archaeology then reveals an Israelite layer of civilization on the tell here. This coincides exactly with the fulfillment of Joshua's prophecy that the city would be rebuilt. We also see a very ancient round structure that dates to around 5 to 6,000 BC. It is believed to have been a tower of some sort, but we're not certain. This gives evidence that Jericho was a very old city. Now, all the evidence we see here at Jericho fits exactly with the sequence of events that the Bible says happened. Instead of this site being used to discredit the Bible, it is one of the best sites to defend and show the truthfulness of the Bible. It is my hope that this video will strengthen the faith of all who see it, and that those who come to visit this site will not be swayed by the false narrative that is being promoted here. In fact, Joel Kramer, a Christian archaeologist, has a desire to restore this site to once again reveal all the evidence that is being covered up here. So it speaks the truth of what the Bible says happened. Here are his hopes.
If I were
But there you have it, man. You know, you can't. Hey, you can't hide truth forever, man. All right. Esau Edom is done. You know, brother can post that in 2nd Ezra 6 and 27 and 28. All right. But yeah, I thought it would be a good documentary. Uh, Esau, how he taught, he ain't got no flavor, but the water for y'all bearing with me. All right, through the documentary, but I thought it'd be faith boosting just to see how even the archaeologist's evidence matches up perfectly, with that account in the Bible. And they're just a token to show that everything in the scriptures is true, man. Everything in the scriptures is true, from the history to the present time to what's prophesied to happen is true, man. you know, hey, we serve a power that's true to His word, man. All right, we serve a power that's true to His word. You see, like the brother Nabala put 2nd Ezra, the Virginia Island straight gate, the 2nd Ezra 6 and 9. For Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth, man. And we're coming into the time of the beginning of the rulership of the nation of Israel, man. We're coming into that time. It's written, it's gonna happen, man. All right. If it's written in the scriptures, it's gonna happen. Now, let's get this. And what I want to end it on is we're gonna go back to Hebrews 4. Let's get Hebrews chapter 4, verses 8 through 11. Hebrews 4, verse 8 through 11. All right. It's from the brother Bayan Yasha'ala. It says, for evil shall be put out, all right, and deceit shall be quenched. And that's what we're seeing happening, man. Esau's evil empire is crumbling. This word going out, just as the priest, all right, back then was blowing that trumpet, all right, surrounding Jericho. Well, we understand that what through Yahweh Shai, all right, the priesthood has been opened up to all tribes, man. So you have all these camps, all these Israelite men blowing this trumpet, man. And what's happening, man? Esau, Edom's this wicked empire is crumbling, man. Verse 28, and it says, as for faith, it shall flourish, corruption shall be overcome, and the truth, which have been so long without fruit, shall be declared, man. And this is what's happening, man. Truth is being declared, man. Lies is being swallowed up, and he can't hide anymore, man. This Bayan Yasha'Allah, Hebrews 4 and 8. Now, as we see, it say Jesus right here, but it's speaking of Joshua. All right. This is speaking of Joshua, whom we've been going into. It said, for if Joshua had given them rest, then would he not afterward have spoken of another day? Yeah, because through Joshua, all right, that began, all right, the sovereignty of Israel, in the land promised to our forefathers. But it wasn't their rest. It wasn't that the eternal rest that we're finna come into now. It says, there remaineth therefore a rest to the people of the Most High. See, now we're fighting back to get back into that rest until this time it's going to be, all right, eternal. If a brother can put that second Samuel 7 and 10. 2 Samuel 7 and 10. It says, for he that is entered into his rest, he also have ceased from his work, his own works, as the Most High did from his. Verse 11, let us labor therefore to enter, all right, into their rest, lest any man fall after the same example of unbelief. And those Israelites, they didn't get to go into that rest because of their unbelief. All right. But we're going to be those that are obedient, to what? Our leadership, beginning with Yahweh Shai. You have the apostles and elders, and the elders set up in different camp. We're being obedient to the leadership, which is going to lead to what? The victory through obedience, man. You see? So this is what, we're coming into, man. All right? This victory by obedience, man. Just as ancient Jericho fell, America gonna fall. America is no different. Ain't nothing special about America. It's gonna fall the same way. If the Most High said that America gonna be a desert, it's gonna be a desert, man. All right. This is 2 Samuel 7:10 said, moreover, I will appoint a place for my people Israel and will plant them and that they may dwell in a place, all right, of their own. All right, and move no more, neither shall the children of wickedness afflict them anymore as be time, man. So we finna get that eternal rest and not be moved, man. You know, and it's gonna be through Yahweh Shai. All right, you know, and Joshua, his name is Yahweh Shai. All right, well, he wasn't, you know, the anointed. He was chosen for that particular time period to do what he did. Was he Yahweh Shai? All right, he's the only begotten Son that's going to lead us to the eternal rest. You know, so that's the point. You know, Lord will, you brothers, you know, you sisters were edified, man. You know, Lord will, I can go more into these, you know, documentaries, and we can just watch them together and, you know, break them down and go into it. You know, if I believe it's something that build our faith, man. You know, all right. Well, I say the water for you brothers and sisters sticking around. I know this ain't the typical lesson. You know, we had to go kind of nerd mode for a minute, but it is what it is, man. It built faith. You know. So Lord willing, you brothers and you sisters edified. Till next time, I say Shalom, Kwam Yashala, Abba, DTA soon.